Hi dear students, here we are again in another video. This one is about passive voice and it targets third grade middle school students. In this lesson, we're going to see what's the passive voice, why and when do we use the passive voice, what's the difference between the active and the passive voice in structure and usage. But before starting, what do we mean by voice and what are voices of a verb? Voice is the term used to describe whether a verb is active or passive. In other words, when the subject of the verb is doing the action of the verb. Like in the example, Betty baked the cake. The verb is said to be in the active voice. But when the subject of the verb is being acted upon, which means receives the action, like in this example, the cake was baked by Betty, here the verb is said to be in the passive voice. So the voice of a verb tells us whether the subject is acting or being acted upon. The easiest way to explain the passive voice is by contrasting it with the active voice. A sentence generally begins with a subject plus verb plus object. Of course, here when we're talking about transitive verbs that take objects. So let's see this example. The teacher explained the lesson. The teacher is the subject, explain the verb, and the lesson is the object. In this sentence, the subject does the action. That's why we say it is an active sentence. But if we begin the sentence with the object and say the lesson was explained by the teacher, the lesson here becomes the subject. It was the object in the active voice, was explained as the verb, and the teacher, which was the subject, is called the agent. In this sentence, the subject is acted upon. That's why we say it is a passive sentence. How to formulate the passive voice, which means how to transform an active sentence into a passive one. Active voice: Kate cooks dinner. There are 5 steps. Number 1, identify the subject, the verb, and the object of the active voice sentence. So Kate is the subject, cooks is the verb, and it's in the present simple, and dinner is the object. Perfect. Number 2, put the object of the verb at the beginning. Dinner, which is the object, we put it at the beginning of the sentence. Good. Number 3, you have to conjugate the verb to be in the same tense as the active sentence. So, dinner is, because dinner is singular. And then number 4, you have to put the main verb in the past participle form, which means the verb cook. You have to put it in the past participle form. Cooked. And then if you want to mention the agent, we use the preposition by with the subject of the verb in the active sentence. So we put by and then Kate. And here we have a passive voice sentence. Passive voice form: subject plus be plus past participle plus agent. Subject plus be plus participle form plus the agent. Why do we have to use the passive voice if an active sentence is shorter, more direct, and we know who is doing the action? That's a good question. To answer it, let's see. People send lots of emails to friends. So let's transform this sentence into the passive voice. Do you remember the steps? Identify the subject, the verb, and the object. Perfect. So the object is lots of emails. Lots of emails are sent, perfect, to friends by people. Well, now if you ask me, why do we put by people between brackets? Because we may not mention it. By people is the agent, and we may not mention it. We could just say lots of emails are sent to friends. You will tell me why. Why not mentioning the agent here? Well, I will tell you because this is the main reason why we use the passive voice. The passive voice is used to emphasize the action or the object rather than who or what is responsible for it. Besides the fact that we omit the agent because it's not important, we also don't mention it because for some other reasons. Sometimes we don't know the doer of the action, which means the agent. Like in the example, my uncle's car was stolen. See here, we don't mention the agent because we don't know who stole the car. It's easy to figure out who the agent is. It's obvious. Like in the example, the thief was arrested. Of course, was arrested by the police. And sometimes a statement in the passive voice is more polite than the active. Let's see these examples. If we say the window was broken and you broke the window, don't you see that the sentence in the passive voice is more polite? Yeah, of course. Well, there are many uses of the passive voice, but what we need to know is how to identify, practice, and produce it in different tenses and forms. So let's start. The present simple passive. Affirmative, I am, called, given. Here you have two different verbs, one regular, one irregular, the verb to call and the verb to give. She, he, it is called, given. We, you, they are called, given. Negative, I'm not called, given. She, he, it isn't called, given. We, you, they aren't called, given. Question interrogative, we inverse the verb to be and the subject. Am I, is she, he, it, are we, you, they called, given? Now past simple passive. Affirmative, I, she, he, it was called, given. You see, the verb changes, the verb to be that change, but the past participle form of the verb doesn't change. I, she, he, it was called, given. We, you, they were called, given. Negative, I, she, he, it wasn't called, given. We, you, they weren't called, given. Interrogative, we inverse, again, the verb to be with the subject. Was I, she, he, it called, given? Were we, you, they called, given? Now present perfect simple passive. The present perfect simple passive is formed with have or has, it depends on the subject, with singular or plural, plus being, plus past participle of the main verb. Affirmative, I, we, you, they have been told. She, he, it has been told. You see? Past participle form of the verb to be. Negative, I, we, you, they haven't been told. She, he, it hasn't been told. Question, have I, we, you, they been told? Has she, it been told? You see here, we inverse again the verb have with the subject. Now future going to passive. The future going to passive is formed with am, is, are, going to plus be plus past participle form of the main verb. Example, affirmative, I'm going to be told, she, it's going to be told, you, they are going to be told. Negative, I'm not going to be told, she, he, it's not going to be told, you, they aren't going to be told. And question, we inverse again, the verb to be with the subject. Am I going to be told? Is she, he, it's going to be told? Are you, they going to be told? Now future will passive. The future will passive is formed with will plus be plus past participle of the main verb. Example, affirmative, I, she, he, it will be told. We, you, they will be told. Negative, I, she, he, it won't be told. It's the contracted form of will not. We, you, they won't be told. Question, we inverse again will and then the subject. Will I, she, he, it be told? Will we, you, they be told? Passive voice of modal verbs. The passive voice of modal verbs is formed as follows. Modal verb can, could, may, might, should, must, have to, plus be, plus past participle of the main verb. Example, they may open a new restaurant. A new restaurant may be opened. See here, modal verb plus be plus past participle. We must cook some food. Some cook must be cooked. Again, modal be past participle. The interrogative and negative form is formed with the interrogative and negative form of the modal verb. Example, should the wall be painted? See here, we inverse should and the wall. The wall shouldn't be painted. Do the flowers have to be watered? The flowers don't have to be watered. Note, not all verbs take objects. Let's have a look at this example. The baby slept early. He ran away. So these two sentences have no objects, which means the verb, there's no object. The verb has no object. It's intransitive. So how can these sentences be transformed into the passive voice since they have no objects? Well, simply, these sentences cannot be changed into the passive voice because they have no objects. If the active sentence begins with no one or nobody, the passive sentence will be negative. Example, no one, nobody fixed my laptop. Passive, my laptop wasn't fixed. Passive voice sentences with two objects. This is so important. Rewriting an active sentence with two objects in the passive voice means one of the two objects becomes the subject. The other one remains an object. So which object to transform into a subject depends on what you want to put the focus on. Let's see the examples. Active, Jack offered a flower to Emily. Here we have two objects, a flower and Emily. So if we want to put focus on Emily, we start the passive sentence with Emily. Emily was offered a flower. You see, a flower remains an object. By Jack. If we want to emphasize a flower, we start with a flower. A flower was offered to Emily by Jack. See here we have two ways to put the passive voice because we have two objects. Now let's do some practice. I will give you the active voice and then you give me the passive voice sentences. People speak English in Australia. People is the subject, speak the verb, English is the object. You remember the steps? Identify the subject, the verb, and the object. And we start the passive voice sentence with the object, which is English, plus the verb be, which has to go with the verb in the active voice, which is in the present simple here, and the subject here is singular, so we put is. And then past participle form of the verb in the active voice, which is speak, spoken in Australia. Very well. Now, she bought her son a book. Pay attention, in this sentence, we have two objects, her son and the book. So, two ways to put in the passive voice. If we want to start with her son, which means we're giving more importance to her son, yes. And then the verb to be in the same tense as the verb, the main verb in the active voice. And here it is in the past simple. Her son is singular, so we put was. And then past participle of the verb by, which is bought. Her son was bought a book by her. You see here a book remains an object. But if we want to start with a book, it's easy. A book was bought to her son by her. See, two ways to put the passive voice since we have two objects. Another example. They're painting the house. They are painting the house. Are painting is the verb in the present progressive. They is the subject. The house is the object. So we start with the house, which is the object. The house is being because be in the ing form because the verb in the active voice is in the present progressive, and then painted, which is the past participle form of the verb paint. Dr. Brown will give you some advice here, future will. And who is the subject? Dr. Brown. Verb will give you is the object, and some advice. Again, it's another object. We have two objects here. So we start by you. You, and then will, plus past participle form of the verb to give. You will be given what? Some advice by Dr. Brown. But here we have another possibility. We can start by some advice. Some advice will be given to you by Dr. Brown. If we want to put more emphasis on more to focus some advice, we start with it. Somebody should do the work. Here we have a modal verb. Yes, the work is the object, so we start with the work plus modal verb plus be plus past participle form of the verb in the active sentence, which is the verb to do. So the work should be done. Perfect. The wolf ate the princess. The wolf is the subject. Ate is the past tense of the verb to eat, and the princess is the object. So we start with the princess, which is the object, and then the verb be in the past simple, because here it's in the past simple, was eaten, which is past participle form of the verb to eat, by the wolf. Perfect. Somebody must have taken my wallet. Where is the object here? Somebody must have taken what? My wallet. So my wallet is the object. We start my wallet, and then modal verb must have been taken, because here we have the present perfect tense. They were building a new stadium near the station. They, subject, were building, verb in past progressive, and new stadium is the object. So we start with the object. A new stadium, we're building, past progressive. So we put a new stadium was, and then being because it's the past progressive, and then past participle form of the verb to build, which is built. Near the station. She found her ring under the bed. She is subject, found, past simple of the verb. To find her ring is the object. So we start with the object, her ring, and then the verb be in the past simple, because the verb here, it's in the past simple, was, because ring is singular, and then found, which is past participle of the verb, to find under the bed. Did you invite Mary to the party? Pay attention here, it's a question, and it's in past simple. So the verb to be should be in past simple, and we have to inverse the verb be, and the object was Mary, which is the object, and then past participle form of the verb to invite, invited to the party. And here we've come to the end of our video. Thank you for watching. I hope you feel confident about passive voice. For more practice, I'm sending you more exercises. Take good care of yourselves, and goodbye.